information shared on Girl Pray On It is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Although I am a licensed mental health counselor, I'm not your therapist. Unless, of course, you're one of my clients. In that case, I am your therapist, and I'll see you in our next session. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapeutic relationship between us. If you are experiencing emotional distress or a mental health crisis, please seek support from a licensed mental health provider in your area or contact a crisis line. Always pray on it, and also reach out when you need help.
But not to us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah. A little tired, but
Yeah.
we're pushing through.
We are pushing through.
Yes.
It is a very hot day and humid day here in New York. It is like 96 degrees today. It's very, very hot. But alhamdulillah, we were able to be here for another episode of Girl Pray on It. Okay, so if your Amazon purchase history got printed, right, and then presented to you on the Day of Judgment, what would embarrass you the most?
Oh my God, this is a hard one.
Yeah.
I think I'm guilty of when I really like something, I will get it in multiple colors.
Yeah.
And then just wear that same outfit and repeat it over and over again, but in different colors.
Yeah.
So I think you would go on my Amazon and see a bunch of the same item that's been purchased multiple times in different colors.
Okay.
And I'm just an outfit repeater like that.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense to me. If there's an outfit that makes you look good, makes you feel good, wear it. Wear it over and over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
That's fair.
Exactly. For me, it's an obscene amount of cat food. Obscene.
Okay. What are your cats eating?
A lot.
A lot.
A
Those
lot.
are hungry cats.
They're very hungry cats, and they're very spoiled. And I get made fun of all the time because of the things that I buy for them. So I'm buying quail eggs.
What?
Yeah, quail frozen
That's a bougie cat.
Yes, but it's good for them. It's good for their hairball. So freeze dried quail egg yolks.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just crumble it up on their food, and they love it. And freeze dried minnows.
Okay.
Okay. Freeze dried chicken hearts. Freeze dried turkey hearts.
These cats are living in luxury. Okay.
Freeze dried beef hearts.
Wow.
Freeze dried beef liver.
Wow.
The most obscene thing that I've bought them is freeze dried baby quails.
Delicious.
Whole baby quails.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, capitalism, bro. It infects us all.
It does.
But let's, since we're on the topic, let's talk about capitalism and consumerism, right?
Before we get started today, I think an important thing that maybe we should talk about is, what is capitalism? What do we mean when we say capitalism, that we live in a capitalist society?
Right. So when I think of capitalism, I think of a socioeconomic structure that is a free market structure that allows for people to make as much money as they potentially can, right? But it's often built on this idea of individualism, where it's a rat race. I'm going to try and get as much as I can for me and mine, and kind of damn everybody else who doesn't get there. And it holds a lot of value on amassing wealth as much as you can and getting above everybody else on this kind of pyramid to nowhere. And it relies on people wanting more for themselves without asking why, I think. So that's how I would define capitalism. Obviously, there are formal definitions of what capitalism is.
Sure.
But I think right now what we're seeing is a level of unchecked capitalism that's wreaking havoc on our communities and society in terms of mental health, in terms of even physical health and environmental health. We're seeing that unchecked capitalism can turn into something that's really ugly and not the society that I would hope most Muslims want to live within. Let's talk about what are some of the ways that capitalism and consumerism and even overconsumption shows up in our daily lives or in your daily life, even when we're trying not to be materialistic, right? How does that show up for you?
It's everywhere.
Mhm.
It's everywhere in so many different facets that we don't necessarily even think about.
Mhm.
I think capitalism is preying on our insecurities
Mm.
as women through advertisements that make us think we need more of the skincare, more of the
Yeah.
makeup, that we have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And, capitalism uses this sort of unrealistic standard of beauty that we all try to aspire to
Mhm.
in order
Mhm.
to sell us diet products,
Yeah, 100%.
makeup products, skincare products.
Mhm.
So essentially, it is a huge negative contributor to self-esteem. So even when you're just scrolling on Instagram and see an ad,
Mhm.
like that is capitalism.
Mhm.
And it's this sort of insidious element of always feeling like we need more and more and more in order
Mhm.
to conform to society standards.
I also think that like capitalism tells us if you have X amount of things, then your life is valuable.
Yeah.
It's funny because I used to teach about Marxism and communism as a
Oh, yeah?
teacher. And all of my students were like, oh, Miss Newman she's anti-capitalist. And I was like, yeah, I am. I am an anti-capitalist. You caught me. Oh no, that's so bad. And what was worse is that they were like, she's a communist. And I was like, I'm not a communist per se, but it's just so funny because they thought that that was like a gotcha moment. Is like, I am very much proud to be, if you are calling me a communist, I think I did my job. And like, I'm okay with that because I don't want to be associated with something that's literally killing people. It's killing people, like, in terms of our mental health, but also in terms of like the world and the earth, right? To always be producing and to be consuming is a problem. And I think so many of us as Muslims have actually bought into capitalism. I was having actually an argument with some people in my family about whether or not there could be a Muslim billionaire.
Mm.
And I said, if you are a Muslim and you're Musliming right, you're on your deen, you're deening, right, there should not be a Muslim billionaire. They shouldn't exist.
Mm.
And their argument was, well, it can exist hypothetically. And I'm like, I don't live in a hypothetical world, I live in the real world, and I don't believe that a good Muslim would ever become a billionaire, because ultimately that means that you are okay with harming something, someone, somewhere, or taking advantage or using people in order for you to make your wealth, right?
So I've had this conversation
Mhm.
before too, in terms of, is there such thing as an ethical billionaire? And I think we've all landed in the same place, which is probably not,
Mhm.
because of exactly what you said of, it's very difficult to amass that much wealth in a capitalist system
Mhm.
without harming someone along the way, or hoarding wealth in a way that is really against our principles of Islam in terms of
Mhm.
giving and
Right.
being charitable. So I totally agree with that. I
Mhm.
think another thing that comes to mind as well when we talk about capitalism is that sort of hustle culture, and how we're always kind of feeling like we either have to, or we already are pushing ourselves to the max in order
Mhm.
to feel like we have enough. What is enough?
Mhm.
And are we prioritizing work and making money over things like family?
Mhm.
And at what point does the hustle culture of always trying to make more and more and more, at what point is it enough? At
Mhm.
what point are you going beyond your like needs, your need
Mhm.
to provide your family, because there's some sort of addiction to having more and more and more and more?
Switching gears, has there ever been a purchase that you have made that was maybe unnecessary, but you called it self-care? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I love this because it ties in a little bit about what I do as a mental health counselor. Because in the world of mental health counseling, we talk a lot about self care. And self care is pretty self-explanatory in
Mhm.
terms of pouring into yourself and caring for yourself so that you experience positive mental health and you're able to better serve the people in your life in
Right.
various ways. And so self-care is absolutely a really important thing. What is that self-care, and when can like that self-care actually become quite harmful? And so I think when we are sort of looking at capitalism and self-care, it's using self-care and taking care of myself, using that as an excuse to maybe make unnecessary purchases,
Mhm.
maybe even going beyond our means to get something that we want
Mhm.
for the sake of self-care. My self-care is usually not rooted in buying things for myself
Really?
necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my self-care is a lot more related to exercise and
Really?
yeah,
Really? Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I feel so much better when I
Really?
exercise, like taking a
S
walk, so good for my mental health. When I exercise, I feel so much better than when I don't exercise.
Mhm.
Exercise is a form of self-care for me because I
Mm.
know that it's something that makes me feel so much better, that helps me get through the day, that like I'm just gonna feel so much better in the day if I have gone for a walk outside.
Okay.
I've definitely indulged in some what we call retail therapy,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is buying something to make myself feel better. I
Right.
think we've all fallen victim to that at some point.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
I
Yeah.
think maybe for me, a little bit of a clothing haul is
A clothing haul?
yes.
Yeah, what okay. Tell me more.
Yeah, buying a lot of clothes
Mm,
at one time that I don't
okay.
necessarily need,
Yeah.
and then often later returning them because I realize I don't actually need them.
Yeah.
I think clothes are a big thing for me. I can
Mhm.
definitely find myself overindulging in
Mhm.
clothes because it makes me feel good.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I if I have the means to do that, I will also do that. For me, like it's about I w- food. Like I'm gonna have to eat anyway, so I will always justify spending money on food because I have to eat. I might as well get me a little sweet treat, get me a boba, get me a matcha, something, and I use those as my unnecessary purchases for self-care and skincare. But like I have become better about not buying a like crazy obscene amount of skincare. For me, I've started saying that I need to use up everything in my beauty chest. I
Mhm.
have backups and I have backups of backups. So I
Yeah,
need to use all of that stuff before I make a new purchase.
love that.
And then I only purchase things when they go on sale
Yeah.
as a way to kind of curb that, like, I don't need to get everything
Mhm.
right now. And then trying to, like, also do the 24-hour rule. Like, if I still am thinking about it in 24 hours, then maybe I actually want it or need it.
Mhm.
But I definitely use food as a, like, unnecessary, like, self-care
Yeah,
type of purchase.
sure.
Yeah.
So often we can find ourselves weaponizing self-care in
Right.
order to justify making unnecessary purchases, which is what we're getting at. And that
Yeah.
that can be tough. Before you had alluded to that the fact that maybe capitalism, at least in this society, is not totally aligned with our value as Muslims.
Mhm.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. When I think about Islam, it's all about balance, right? And taking the middle road. But when you think about capitalism, or when I think about capitalism, I think of excess, right? And it's going so far off the deep end where you can just be making an obscene amount of money. You could be buying an obscene amount of things with no type of stopping point. And so when I think about how does capitalism and Islam and living in the West as Muslims intersect, I think that we have to be very spend conscious, right, about what we're consuming. We have to be thinking about where were things made, right? So like not really really trying not to get to buy fast fashion, right? I often see hauls from Shein and H&M and Fashion Nova for Muslims. And I'm like, why are we still buying these things, right? We know the dreadful impact that it's having on bigger Muslims in
Mhm.
China. and we are still purchasing from Shein, right? Same thing for H&M, same thing for Nike, et cetera, and really trying to ensure that our money is going to ethical places, right? So trying to make sure that we're shopping small and that we're shopping with intention, right? So we're not just buying pieces of clothing because they fit a trend, but we're actually buying pieces of clothing because we want to have them in our wardrobe for 10 plus years. And we want to make one purchase rather than having to make 10 more purchases of the same thing.
Sure.
So just thinking very intentionally about where we're putting our money. I have dedicated myself to not buying a new phone until this one completely just does not work anymore, at all, because of what's going on in the Congo and the natural minerals that need to be mined in order to make these phones. And of course, Apple says that it's using recycled materials, but I think as Muslims, we have a responsibility to use things until they are no longer usable.
Yeah.
And then even when we need to get something new, think about buying refurbished, think about buying secondhand.
So I'm going to take it a little bit in a different direction.
Okay.
Which is that I think the spirit of Islam and also most, if not all religions, is this element of being charitable and sharing in the things that we have. And so I think in this capitalist society that we live in right now that you had alluded to can be quite individualistic, which is I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to buy things based on the money that I make for myself or my family. And there is very little emphasis on how do we care for each other as a community, as a society. So there's a big buzzword going on right now, especially in New York City, as Zohran Mamdani just won Democratic primary and is now the leading candidate for the mayor.
Yeah.
And he describes himself as a democratic socialist.
Same.
And I think they don't understand what exactly that means. But when we talk about like socialism, which is another kind of economic structure, it is more about having social programs that we are funding as individuals, but that is meant for the community to share in. For example, one of the platforms that Zohran has been running on is having free buses, for example. And this is something that would be paid for, like potentially, or the various proposals that he's coming with is that these things are paid for by the government, but also from individual taxpayers, which is where that element of socialism comes from. Oftentimes, the people who are paying taxes, the taxes are funding social programs. And I think that this is really very much in alignment with who we are as Muslims, being charitable. And in fact, we are actually required every year to give a portion of our wealth to the needy, people who are in need of that wealth. This Islamic principle of we actually have a requirement of giving a portion of our wealth to people who really need it is very much in alignment with socialist principles. And to be clear, although we do live in a capitalist society, this is not entirely a capitalist society in terms of we do have various social programs that are funded by the government, such as like food stamps, such as what else?
WIC. It's another form of like feeding mothers and babies.
Yeah, or Social Security.
Social Security.
We don't necessarily know the future.
Subsidized housing.
Subsidized housing. We don't necessarily know the future of these projects, but for years, we've had these sort of systems in place to help people who really need them. And so these examples have existed for a long time, and yet we feel very scared of the word socialism. We feel really scared, I guess, because people are afraid that it would mean I have to give all of my wealth away and like I'd have to make less money
Mhm.
than I potentially deserve or earn
Mhm.
in order to be having a more equitable society. And so
Mhm.
I think this element of blending capitalism and socialism is a lot more in line with Islamic values,
Mhm.
where in Islam, we are allowed to
Mhm.
make money and
Right.
like we are allowed to have businesses,
Mhm.
and there are going to be like there are going to be differentials in terms of some people are going to make more money and some people are going to make less money.
Mhm.
And there's nothing per se that is wrong with that. But that there are these sort of social programs that are in place that are a benefit to the community and to people who really need that.
Yeah, yeah. And when you really think about it, like on the day of judgment, we're all going to be questioned about where we spent our money, and the types of programs we supported, the types of government we supported. And I think it's important for us to really think about when we stand before Allah, are we going to be satisfied with leaving this legacy of capitalism, or is that something that we're hoping to change, right? Are we hoping to shift to a more socialist society that benefits everyone, that's not just about amassing wealth with no endpoint? And I think that's a really important conversation that we need to be having in the Muslim community.
Yeah. There's also this word in Arabic and within our religion that is israf, and that means excess. And it's haram. There's this idea that going above and beyond our means for the sake of showing off or just having having that sort of unchecked amass of wealth, that is where it becomes quite problematic because our religion is based on these ideas of humility and living within our means. For those who don't know, interest is actually forbidden in our religion, which is this other element that comes into play, which is that there is a really important emphasis on not profiting on other people's misfortune.
Yeah.
So these are all huge tenets of our faith that I think really conflict with this sort of hyper capitalist society that we now find ourselves in.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And not only do they conflict, I think they're antithetical to one another. And I think that's part of the reason why there's, I think, a lot of Islamophobia that's coming up, because when you really think about it, Islam is about eliminating interest. It's about not having excess. It's about making sure that you're taking care of those who are less fortunate or the needy. The idea that your wealth is not your own, but it's actually Allah's and it should return to him. And that's where we get zakat from, right? I think it's scary for a lot of people. But we also know that Islam is a balanced religion with all of these things that might feel antithetical to the Western society is actually a benefit to us as humans. I wish we were able to talk about that more openly, because I think what people want is actually an Islamic society, but they're actually scared to say that's what they actually want. Yeah.
Could you imagine?
I know, right? All right. Do you think it's time to switch gears?
Let's do it.
Okay, great.
Let's do it. Let's get into some tea and tobacco.
All right. So now is the time where we read your listener letters and we respond to them and we give our opinions on them. And if you would like to have your question or letter read, you can send that to girlprayonitpod@gmail.com and we might just read it on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready?
We are.
Okay. This letter reads, Salam guys, this is a slight rant, but I wanted to know if you felt this way or had any thoughts. Obviously, Muslim girls have to put a little more effort in, especially in the West, to find nice layered clothes, look put together and modest. And I'm not going to bash any influencers because honestly, alhamdulillah for them, I wouldn't have put on the hijab if I didn't know I had options to explore fashion while staying modest. I recently got TikTok back again to follow the US election cycle, and obviously my algorithm figured out that I'm Muslim, so the hijabi influencers are back on my feed. And a few years ago, I was all love. It was all love. And I absolutely love seeing the modest finds and whatnot. But now I'm a little older and I find that the sustainable white non Muslim creators I follow live more humbly and sustainably by choice and in my head inherently more Islamically. I just find it a little silly that a lot of creators say, "Oh, this is such a good piece; it'll last you forever." But when am I gonna wear it more than once? At the end of the day, I know that it's their jobs are basically to be walking ads, so don't worry. I can critically think, but I feel sad for the teens right now who get sucked into the obsession of constant consumption. What are your thoughts?
Well,
Yeah.
she really summed up kind of what our conversation was hitting on
Right.
earlier,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
totally agree. I think, like she alluded to, this is their job, and their job is to make money
Mhm.
by selling something,
Mhm.
being sponsored by someone.
Mhm.
It is quite unfortunate that as Muslims, we sort of lost the point.
Right.
I think as Muslims, we've forgotten our intention
Mhm.
for our careers and like
Mhm.
why are we in this career?
Mhm.
What is our ultimate goal with that career?
Mhm.
I think like at the end of the day, we all have to make money to
Mhm.
live.
Right.
That's absolutely.
Mhm.
But how are we earning that money? I think that's the critical point is
Yeah.
there's a huge difference when you are putting out content that is benefiting people for the sake of Allah, that
Mhm.
you want to help people for the sake of Allah,
Mhm.
versus putting out content just to make money
Mhm.
because you need the money
Mhm.
and it's actually harming people.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's been definitely a shift with influencers now. They realize that, specifically Muslim influencers, they realize that they can't just sell us anything,
Mm-hmm.
and that they have to be intentional with the brands that they're choosing to work with and the things that they're asking us to buy or asking us to check out. And I think that's great and everything. And there still needs to be, like I said earlier, there needs to be intentionality with which we consume their content and acknowledging that not everything that they say, oh, hey, this is great, this is amazing, that we have to go out and buy, but rather just appreciating the content for the content and not giving in to this idea of like overconsumption and that we have to continue to purchase things to look like them. Because honestly, when you think about a lot of the influencers that are showing us all of these things, they're getting that stuff for free, right? They're not actually paying money or like they're not, most of them are not going out and spending the money that it costs to like buy the clothes, to buy the makeup, the skincare, et cetera, et cetera. They're being gifted that by the company, the whoever is sending that to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's our jobs as consumers to remember that one, they got it for free. Two, we don't have to continue to just buy and buy, right? And three, we should be purchasing with intentionality, right? And I truly believe in like trying not to buy synthetic clothing, so like polyester and all of that stuff, and to trying to buy as much like cotton, natural fibers as I can. One, it's better for your health, but then two, it's better on the environment. And then three, I want my clothes to last longer. So those are some of the ways that I'm trying to be more conscious when I'm purchasing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to say that this is not to bash influencers or
Mhm.
this is no hate on them. I'm not saying that what they do is bad or wrong.
Right.
I think what you had brought up was we have to look at videos with a level of critical thinking
Right.
and
Exactly.
that we are being very intentional when we watch these videos about what that product is, where that product comes
Right.
from.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, as you had alluded to, more and more influencers are sort of realizing that.
Mhm.
But I think the rise of influencer culture has definitely led to that sort of hyper consumerism,
Yeah.
even wanting to emulate these influencers in terms of buying what they have
Right,
so that we
exactly.
look like them or we act
Right.
like them.
Yeah.
And all of these things can be quite harmful and
Yeah.
problematic. I think it's really wonderful when you stumble upon an influencer who recognizes that and doesn't exploit that, but is very open and honest about that.
Yeah, 100%. Other things from the letter that you wanted to address?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. It's that time in the podcast where I look at the camera and I rant about anything that is bothering me that day, that week, that month, maybe that year. And today, on the subject of capitalism and all of that stuff, I have to say the thing that is bothering me is hijab tutorials. I feel like we've okay, so I grew up in the age of Gina Tokyo when she was still hijabi and she was doing all the hijab tutorials and things like that. And Amina, right? Yeah, all when she was also hijabi and she ran a hijab company. Like there was all of these tutorials, right, on how to wrap your hijab. And now I see, like, I'm scrolling through TikTok and people are asking for other people to give them hijab tutorials. And I'm like, go look on YouTube. Like, why do we still have, like, why are people still asking for hijab tutorials? I feel like all the hijab tutorials are done. They're like, we've wrapped our hijab in as many ways as we possibly can. And you don't need to ask someone for hijab tutorial. I guarantee you it's out there on YouTube. You just need to go look.
So go look in the archives.
Yeah, exactly.
Of Gina Tokyo or Amina Khan. Yeah. And you will find it.
Exactly. Like, I just don't understand why I keep seeing these hijab tutorials online and it's the most basic style I've ever seen. And I'm like, you can't be serious. You can't be. And maybe I'm a hater. Maybe I'm a hater. Proud hater. But I just don't see the point in it. And I want you guys to just do a little Google search. I feel like people have lost the plot and have forgotten how to, like, Google something, how to search something up on YouTube. That's what it is. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Like, people don't want to go look for a hijab tutorial. They just want to, like, ask a person and then have them, like, reply to the story and then the video just be there. I think that's what it is.
So it's a convenience thing.
It's a convenience thing and a laziness thing. And I hate it. I hate seeing that. I don't know. How do you feel about hijab tutorials?
The trends are always changing. It's so funny. I think a lot of people who are not in this community or in this world don't realize that actually, just like in the ways in which there's fashion trends and makeup trends, there's also hijab trends. Yeah. And I think I've seen the hijab trends mirror the society, like, trends in terms of, like, there was this, quote, like, clean girl aesthetic, which is, like, just very much along the lines of simplicity and being more simple with your makeup. And I think that the hijab had, like, the trend in the hijab world has also been a quite easy, clean aesthetic. And that's just been, like, whip, done.
Right. Yeah,
no
exactly.
pins, no muss, no fuss. So really anybody could do that.
Exactly. Why do you need a hijab tutorial for that? That's what's so confusing.
This is a long-winded way of me saying I actually agree with you. I don't think we need any more hijab tutorials. I think we have come to a day and age in which you can just place the hijab on your head and go whoop, and you're done. That's my look these days.
Exactly. Like, I don't get it. Maybe someone can explain it to me and explain, like, why we need that, but I just don't think we need it anymore. So if I could see less of that, that would be great. that would be great. All right, so I think that concludes this episode of Girl Pray on It.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us.
Yes, thank you. And don't forget to
Girl Pray on it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Girl Pray on It podcast. We hope today's conversation gave you something to reflect on. Be sure to follow us on both Instagram and TikTok at Girl Pray on It Pod. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girl Pray on It Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen, so you'll always be up to date with our newest episodes. Stay connected, stay encouraged, and as always, Girl Pray on It.